Do you want to PR your next race? Well, if that sounds like a goal that you have, we got you. Because today we're going over specific workouts that you can incorporate into your training program to help you become a more efficient runner and help you PR your next race.
Yeah, we always talk about that. You got to step outside the comfort zone to see some growth. And this 20% of your workout portion is really where you got to step outside of that box.
Before we hop into today's episode, we want to say thank you for tuning in and listening to what we have to say. Over the last 3 years since we started this brand, we've set out on our mission to help people through the workouts that we create, through the supplements that we provide, and keeping people feeling confident in their workout apparel.
If you'd like to support our brand, you can go ahead to FitGrindFormula.com and check out our supplements and grab a new gym outfit to feel good and confident in.
That's right. So with all that said, we're going to say thank you, and let's hop into today's episode.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today's topic is going to be over how we can incorporate faster running into your program.
Yeah, the topic today, we talk a lot about how you need to run slower to build your aerobic base and how that's going to make up the bulk of your training. But today we're going to talk about why you also need to run faster, how that's going to help you improve as a runner, especially if you have a very specific time goal on a race, whether it's a 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon. If you have a specific time that you need to run that race in, we're going to talk about why you need to do some of these faster workouts that are going to help you, and how you can incorporate this into your training to just help you improve as a runner.
Yeah, for sure. So we have just started reincorporating this into our program. We were doing a lot of like tempo runs and interval training, which we still will do. But just this week we were like, hey, let's try to incorporate more of like trying to hit our time that we want to hit during race day.
Yeah. So let's break it down into kind of what our goals are for this upcoming half marathon. Let's start there, and let's kind of give some context onto the mileage of like why we're running these specific paces, and let's talk about, our goals first. So your goal for this half marathon coming up is?
Yeah, so pace wise, I'm trying to hit about an 8:20, which would give me sub 150. Last half marathon, I think, what did we say? It was like 157, I think I hit 154.
Like it was under 2 hours. Yep.
Somewhere around there. But, and I know that doesn't seem like much to shed, but overall that adds up.
A couple minutes is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my previous half marathon was 137.51. My goal is to go sub 135. So for me, I need to run 13.1 miles. I need to run a 7:15 or better minute per mile pace. So giving that context, we're going to talk about faster runs today. What you need to think about is what your goal is, and then you're going to find a pace that you need to hit average outwise to each mile to hit that pace. And that's what we're going to talk about a lot today, is finding that pace, and then what do you do with that pace? You can't just expect to show up on race day running all really slow miles and then just magically out of nowhere, you're just going to run these really fast miles or faster than you're used to. So just kind of giving some context there. Alyssa's goal half marathon pace is 8:20 to 8:22. My goal half marathon pace is like 7:15. And we'll explain why we need those numbers and how it doesn't have to be 8:20 and 7:15 for you. It can be faster, slower, the same, but you have to find what your goal pace is and then incorporate that into the workouts. And like I said, that's what we'll really talk about today.
Yeah, and we were able to choose this goal based off of our last race. So if you don't have a goal to base off of, like if you haven't run a race ever or you're new to running, I would say just start running and kind of see where your average pace is at. And then you can kind of go from there. But if you have previously ran a race before, then you can obviously choose based off of what that race and how that race went for you.
Yeah, that is kind of hard. If you've never run a specific race before, you're like, what should I do? Like, what's realistic or what's too much? But yeah, just go out and run a couple miles, see what your pace is at an easy pace, and then from there, you can take it up. And throughout your training, you're going to start to understand if that's too much or if it's not enough, or what you're going to understand what that pace is going to do for you. and if it's going to be appropriate for the race that you're trying to run. So
yeah, I will say though that we talked about this too, that on race day you always run like harder than what you would run just another average training day.
Yeah. But we want to make sure that we're not relying on that to out of nowhere just run faster. But yes, you do always run faster on race day. You're just excited, and
endorphins.
You've typically done a good taper in your training, and your legs are more fresh than they are throughout your training.
People are watching.
People are watching, cheering you on. You got this, you're running against people, so it's like this competitive nature a little bit. But yes, the things that we're going to talk about today are going to prepare you to run a specific race at a specific pace and tell you how to incorporate that. So starting off, we always talk about how 80% of your training should be done low, slow aerobic heart rate. We've talked about how to find your max aerobic heart rate and the importance of structuring most of your runs around slow runs. It's going to help you build on an aerobic base. It's going to help you actually build out endurance so that you can run for not just 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 miles, but you can just run continuous at the same pace. If you could feel the run all day long, it's just a pace that you can keep running at. So that's why we want to spend most of the time on these lower, slower paces. That other 20% is what we're talking about today, is that faster pace. Threshold work. It's not just running hard, it's running hard with a purpose. It's structuring your run around specific workouts, specific intervals, specific repeats at specific times and distances to get your body acclimated to that, and also to improve your VO2 max. These higher heart rates, harder workouts are really going to help improve the max volume of oxygen that you can use, and really just build out your heart's the strength, and really just build out the strength of your heart to get through harder workouts and get through higher heart rate workouts. Yeah,
and you're going to be able to utilize that 20% more efficiently if you really take that 80% and really listen to your body, A, and B, listen to your aerobic heart rate. I mean, we don't need to obsess over it, because Jordan and I have had this conversation before. When we run outside and we're running up hills and things and it's not super flat, you're going to have some spike in heart rate, and we've noticed that. But long story short, if you take those runs more seriously and more literal to the fact that you have to keep those runs easy, then you really can exert more energy at that 20% when you're going into threshold. Because if you go hard all week long, and then you expect that threshold workout to be intense, and you're like, why am I not able to exert the energy and the effort that I want to? You got to look back and say, okay, am I taking those easy runs seriously easy, or am I putting too much effort into those runs, and then it's not giving me the full max effort that I need for these threshold workouts?
Yeah, and let's give some context to that. So my goal is to run 7:15 minute miles on a half marathon day. My easy runs are run somewhere between a 9 to 9.5 minute mile. So just give some context on, I'm not out there ripping through 7:15s every day. That is a really good way to just completely destroy your body, run into injuries, not be able to handle the volume that's necessary. So that's typically where I run my slow and easy miles, is like 9, 9.5. Some days it's a little bit faster if it's a flat route and it's like 8:30s, but that's where the bulk of my training is done. And you can kind of talk about the same thing for you.
Pace at an easy run. Now my goal pace again is 8:20, so it's a little bit slower than that. And I will say, like yesterday when we ran at that 8:20 pace, that felt like I was sprinting. So
we're also running in 37 mile an hour wind.
but
we got it done.
Yeah. But the goal on those runs is, like Jordan was talking about, we really want to build that aerobic base so that we can run longer and harder and faster. And so that's why it's important to really dial in on those workouts and make sure that you're staying at that aerobic base to build that aerobic capacity, so that when we go into that threshold, we can fully exert the energy that we have.
Yeah, it's a dual facet. It's two different components of your training. You have to have both, depending on the race you're running too. Now, if you're running 5K and you're just like, I want to run as hard as I can, you still need an aerobic base, but more of your training is going to be done at that threshold for that specific race.
Because it's shorter.
Yeah, because it's shorter. It's 3 miles. So versus if you're running a marathon, a lot of your training is going to be done at that aerobic pace.
Endurance.
Because you have to get a lot of mileage in, and you can't run half of your mileage in an anaerobic state and expect to recover from that or feel good. Your body's going to be wrecked. So look at the race that you're running, and your training is going to be slightly different depending on what the race is. But you do need to structure, general rule of thumb, most of your runs need to be aerobic, and maybe 1, maybe 2 of those runs a week need to be, like some of the workouts that we're going to talk about today, more of that anaerobic pace.
Yeah, let's talk about those.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So typically, like I talked about, so remember your goal pace is unique to each individual. Find out what your time is for a specific run. You're going to find your goal. So for me, it's 7:15. Alyssa, it's like 8:20, 8:22. So a lot of good ways that you can train at this pace. There's a couple different types of workouts that you can do. You can do things like fartlek intervals. You can do things like track workouts where you're doing distance repeats. You can do tempo runs, and we'll dive specifically into each of those and the benefits and the drawbacks of each.
Yeah,
but these are all really good ways that you can start to incorporate faster runs. And not only, like we talked about, improve your VO2 max and improve your anaerobic efficiency and your lactate threshold, but also just from a really basic standpoint of getting your legs used to turning over faster. Like if you're running faster, it means your legs, your feet are just hitting the ground more often, and your legs have to get used to that pace. So these are really good ways to just kind of acclimate yourself to those faster paces, just from the standpoint of just getting your legs used to turning over faster.
Yeah, so let's go over what each one of those looks like. So the fartlek training is actually one of my favorites. So with this one, I'm just going to give an example. Let's say we're running 4 miles and we're breaking that up into paces. So that first 2 minutes will go more at that maybe goal pace of 8:20, 8:22. And then we really slow it down, like really, really bring it down so that our heart rate comes down and we're getting into a recovery for 2 minutes. And then we go back 2 minutes and really go back at that goal pace. And then same thing, repeat for 4 miles. So that's kind of an example of what like a fartlek training interval session would look like. And this, again, allows you to get in that pace that we want to be comfortable in, but then also gives the body the chance to recover from that too. And I actually know a lot of people that do their races like this too. I've never dipped into that, but I've seen people that do that, and it's there's benefits to that too, where you can like exert more energy for like a mile and then kind of like slow it down, exert more energy. It just allows the body to recover a little bit better. Yeah.
Fartleks are good for 2 things. Fartleks are really good at getting a little bit of practice at your goal pace. So like, for example, a way that Alyssa mentioned, like you say you do a standard like 4 mile fartlek run, and you're just doing 2 minutes, 2 minutes. This can look so different. Like you can change this up, down, but say it's just 2 minutes on and then 2 minutes at a recovery pace. It's really good at getting used to that harder pace. And then what's really good too is making you get used to running and not stopping. Because with fartlek intervals, we're not resting. That 2 minutes off, call it off, quote unquote off, you're still running. It's just you bring it down to a slower pace. And what that does is it really helps with heart rate recovery and helps you get used to still running and being able to get your heart rate down. Because while running, exactly. Yes. Because a lot of times when people's heart rate gets too high, they run too hard, they have to walk to get their heart rate down. And if you can have the ability to say you go a little too hard, and if you can bring your pace back down a little bit, or say you go up a hill and your heart rate spikes to the roof, if you can keep running at the top of that hill once you get back to flat and continue to get your heart rate back down, and then you can get back to your pace, that's a very efficient tool. And fartlek intervals are a really good way at allowing you to do that. Now, fartlek intervals can be set up so many different ways. Like that was an example of where it would be like equal work to equal rest ratio. This past week, we actually had, this week, actually, tomorrow, we have a fartlek workout, and it's going to be about 4-ish miles of run volume, depending on your pace, and it's more of a timed interval. So, for example, the workout that we have coming up tomorrow is a doozy. It's a fartlek interval workout. We're going to start off with about a mile run, get the legs rolling, get the heart rate up a little bit, and then we're going to go into 5 rounds. We're going to run 5 minutes at your goal pace, and then you're going to run a 1 minute recovery run at about 9-10, nice easy pace, and repeat that 5 rounds. So again, it's getting you used to running at those faster paces. The short rest time, the 1 minute, is really low because we want to spend more time at that higher pace and really get our legs used to turning over and our heart rate used to settling at that pace. But like I said, you can set up fartlek intervals so many different ways. You can get really creative and fun with it, but it's a really good way to help you just build out some endurance and just get used to running at faster paces and not walk while you run. That's a really fun thing because it allows you to toggle back and forth between 2 different speeds.
Yeah, and with that short rest break, if you will, that gets better over time because the more that we train, just like in weight training, or we're talking about running today, but as you get more in shape, I guess, your cardiovascular system gets more in shape, you are able to recover quicker.
Yes.
So that will get easier over time. So 1 minute might be like, we might be like struggling, but the more and more that you do that, the better and the quicker that your body will recover.
Yeah. The best way to really get better, especially at these higher paces and these harder workouts, is just stick with the program. So if you have a certain structured rest time, or if you have certain structured work and rest intervals, it's going to suck. It's hard. It's supposed to be. But by getting through that and sticking with the program, you're going to see benefits from week to week, month to month, year to year.
Yeah, it's really cool, actually.
It is really cool, and it sucks, and it's hard. And the first time that you go out and do a fartlek workout, you're probably going to finish your faster interval, and you're going to want to walk. But do everything you can to just recover during a light, easy trot and try and get your heart rate back down. Just breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and it will get better over time. But that first time you try it, it's probably not going to be the most fun thing in the world, but that's where we really progress. That's why these workouts are not every single day. It's, maybe once, maybe twice a week, but it's really hard, and it's going to help you become a more efficient runner. But you're kind of stepping outside that comfort zone. You're overreaching just a little bit so that you can see some progress.
Yeah, we always talk about that. You got to step outside the comfort zone to see some growth. And this 20% of your workout portion is really where you got to step outside of that box.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like we were talking about, as far as the rest breaks go, being mindful with that too, like really you may be feeling really, really good and you're like, oh, I got this, but really, really give your body the chance to really bring that heart rate down. Even though you may be feeling good and you want to just power through it, allowing your body to recover through that is going to give you more energy to put out in those like faster pace intervals.
Yeah, or you're going to thank yourself in later rounds.
Maybe
you're doing 5 rounds of like 2 different paces, and you get that first one and you pass with flying colors, like, this is a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Round 4 and 5, you're going to be wanting or wishing that you maybe had stuck with the program.
Yes.
Been there, done that.
I was just going to say that. I'm like, there's been multiple times where we start out hot and then we're like, woo.
Yes.
That's one thing you really got to be mindful of and kind of drop that ego for a second and just follow the program because it's programmed that way for a reason.
Yeah. Well, and 2, there's a lot to be said about getting a thorough warm-up. So a lot of times our faster pace runs, and we'll talk about this in a second, we just did a run yesterday. It was an 8-mile run where we toggle back and forth, alternating miles. 1 mile was faster pace, 1 mile was slower pace. We started with a 2-mile easy warm-up run. And some people might be like, wait a second, you're going to go run really hard miles. Why would you go warm up first? You're going to feel 10 times better if you warm up at a nice easy pace for 1 mile, 2 miles, depending on, your level of fitness and your tolerance to volume and time that you have. But you're going to feel so much better once you get your legs warm, your mind right, you get everything going.
Blood flowing.
You're going to be able to hit those paces, hold them, versus if you just start off cold, running as hard as you can, your lungs are going to be killing. Your legs are not going to be able to turn over. You're going to be reaching for that pace, and it's not going to be a good experience. So there's a lot to be said about a good, thorough warm-up. No matter what run we were doing, we were always doing some dynamic movements and some light jogging, running, intervals, that type of stuff, or running for distance before we even start the workout.
Yeah. I like that you brought that up because that 2-mile run that we did before jumping into that pace, it made it a lot easier to transition and get my feet to turn over, like you also talked about. Because if I would have started off with that pace, 8:20 pace, I think I would have like slowly just declined, because it doesn't allow your legs to warm up. And it was cold out yesterday too. So, just kind of listening to that and putting that into perspective too, because the cooler it is outside, the more like tense our bodies are going to be. And we really actually need to get more blood flow circulating when it's colder. So
on my YouTube channel, actually I have 2 videos coming out this week. So the Tuesday video is, I might get these back and forth, but both videos this week are going to be about faster pace runs. So we recorded the full day of our long run day that we just talked about with the alternating miles. And then I also recorded a fartlek interval workout from, I think about a week ago, that is posting this week too as well. That'll take you through that. So if you're looking for more specifics on that, I have that on my channel. Alyssa has all her videos each week that she's documenting on her YouTube channel too as well. So if you're looking for more like video content and more context around these runs, you want to see the visual aspect, go check out our YouTube channels. We have all those videos where we're documenting all of our workouts throughout this entire half marathon prep.
Yeah, yesterday was a cold one, and if you go watch those videos, you'll see how we had to kind of adjust to that. But with that being said, we never want to just say, oh, it's too cold, it's too windy, we'll just run on the treadmill. First of all, holy smokes, I don't know if I could run on the treadmill for 8 hours, because that would be really
8 hours?
Or 8 miles. Oh my God, no, not 8 hours.
I would hate running on the treadmill for 8 hours.
Oh, I don't know if I could run on the treadmill for 8 miles. But, pushing yourself in extremes like that will prepare you for the unknown on race day.
Yes.
Because we cannot predict what race day looks like. It could be raining. We live in Nebraska. It could be snowing.
Yeah.
It could be 70 degrees. So we have to train at all aspects of weather and be prepared to be able to endure that process and know what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what could bring. A lot of times half marathons, they're either in like the spring or the fall. Weather conditions can really vary, and you have no clue what it's going to look like. So if you see a day where it's like it's raining outside, or it's super windy, or it's maybe not the greatest conditions, I really urge you to go and still train, because if you do that, it's going to build confidence. And say on race day it's rainy or it's super windy, it's not your first time running in the rain or running in the wind. The biggest thing that you can do to be ready for race day is just build confidence. Yes, experience what it's like. And yes, you want to run at these faster paces, get your legs and physiologically get yourself ready, but also psychologically, you want to be ready for that race and have the confidence that no matter what the conditions are, that I can go and hit the paces that I want to hit, and I can finish this race and finish the way that I want to. So that goes a long ways. Training
for sure.
Any condition.
Yeah, that brings me back to like the days when I was an athlete, and we play softball in the fall time, and we would go into state in like October, and it would snow.
Yeah.
And so I had to be prepared for
whatever. Sometimes it's 80 degrees in October.
I know.
We live in a place where the weather is unpredictable, for sure.
Yeah. So
we've talked about fartlek intervals. Let's talk about track workouts. Let's talk about the importance of those and some of the track workouts that we've done, why we're doing them, and we talked about specific distances and paces and why you would want to incorporate a track workout, even if you're running a 10K, a half marathon, or a marathon.
Yeah, so it's going to help with speed, clearly. It's going to help with muscular endurance overall. You're gonna see benefit in that, and it's kind of like what we talked about with these other training protocols, but that feet turnover, like getting comfortable with these faster paces, is just going to help overall in your performance long distance as well. So.
Yeah, for sure. It's such a critical part that a lot of people miss. We talked about, you can go run low, slow miles, and you can build a really great aerobic base. But if you haven't practiced faster paces, it's hard. It's really hard on race day just to pull that out of nowhere. You're really going to be reaching, and you might not succeed. So track workouts are great at helping you hit these faster paces and kind of break it into intervals. So we'll do varying distances for intervals. With our program, it's building from week to week, but distances that we'll hit some 400s, 800s, some 1200s. And as the program goes on, we even have some 1600 meter or 1 mile repeats. And the idea is to hold the goal pace or faster. That really is the goal. It's not just we're just lackadaisically running for 800 meters or 1200 meters or whatever it is. It's hit goal pace or better for this distance. Very short rest time. So typically we're sticking to about a minute rest. For the mile repeats, we get somewhere up like minute to 90 seconds rest when we're doing multiple repeats on those. So it's really low rest. It forces your body to get that heart rate back down and then repeat the same efforts, trying to hit at goal pace or better. There's a very methodical, thought out approach. And like Alyssa said, it helps you get the legs to turn over faster. Like we mentioned earlier, it's going to really help improve your VO2 max. So your VO2 max, the analogy that I always use, imagine like your bench press 1 rep max is the max amount of weight that you can lift on a bench press. And that's how we test, muscular strength, say, for example. Your VO2 max is your heart's 1 rep max. So it's the max volume of oxygen that you can utilize. And if you have a higher VO2 max, it's gonna carry over into higher outputs. You're gonna be able to run at harder paces for longer, and typically run at a lower heart rate at those harder paces. So,
which is the goal.
Which is the goal, exactly. That is the goal, especially on race day. So, incorporating track workouts are huge. You can start off with something light. You can start off with see what your 800 meter run is. So that's 2 laps around a 400 meter track. You could see what your 400 is. And again, find your goal pace and structure these runs at or better than goal pace. Repeat them. And that's really the keys. You're just conditioning your body to this pace and getting it ready, not only physiologically, but also mentally and psychologically as well.
Yeah. We like to do these on the track, and sometimes we'll do them on the treadmill too, because you can kind of gauge it a little bit easier on the treadmill too. But this is definitely one that I would suggest taking to the track.
Yes, there's a difference between, like you mentioned earlier, these workouts kind of build muscular endurance. They really do, because there's a big difference between running harder on a track than keeping up with a belt on a treadmill.
Yeah.
Your legs typically they're actually gonna work and contract a little bit harder when you're running on that track. So you get that feeling for what it feels like when your hamstrings are fatiguing because you're running at these faster paces, or whatever muscle is fatiguing. Typically it's gonna be the hamstrings. But that's a huge thing. That's a good point, that if you can practice these at a track or even like a flat stretch of land or something that's not super hilly, it's really going to help you get a gauge on what that pace is going to feel like on race day. Yeah.
These are kind of similar to like the other interval sessions that we're doing, but just shorter distances.
Yeah, so. And more repeats. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we've talked about all the different ways that we can incorporate this 20% of our training program into our prep. So let's kind of go a little deeper into what that is going to look like as we get closer to race day, and how we're going to increase those intervals and getting more and more comfortable being at your race pace so that you are ready to run at that pace for 13.1 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. So for us, it's half marathon. It's 13.1 miles. And when you're building up, typically you're never going to run 100% of the race unless it's at a very slow aerobic pace and you're not sure if you can run 13 miles. For most people, you're not going to want to run the distance for the race entirely, unless it's like a shorter distance, maybe like a 5K or 10K.
Yeah.
But typically for a half marathon, you build up to 11 to 12 miles, depending on who it is. And you almost want to create like a practice trial run. Yeah. Maybe not all, say you're running 11 miles and it's a trial run, 11 mile goal workouts. Maybe not all 11 of those miles are run at goal pace, but a majority of them should be run at goal pace. Yeah. So for example, maybe 7 or 8 of those 11 miles are spent at that goal pace, and maybe a couple of them are spent at recovery paces or warm-up paces, that type of stuff in the beginning. But that just one, it gives you an idea of where your fitness is at and like, can I do this?
Yeah.
But two, it also just builds your confidence. Like when you hit a really hard workout and you finish it and you're like, I was able to hold the pace that I wanted, that felt so good. You're just building this confidence up and up and up. And that's a huge thing when it comes to race day, because
you don't want to go in blinded.
Yeah, you're always going to be a little nervous. Like for us, it's like excited nervous, but you want to be confident nervous. Like, I know I can do this. I have the fitness to do this. I've put in the work to do this and reach this goal, because I've done all the work that I need to do, and you can be confident with that, and more of like just an excited, giddy kind of nervous type of feeling.
Yeah, I think it's important to have some of your training sessions be like as if it were race day.
Yes.
Like treat them like, obviously put all effort you have in each workout, but like we talked about, we have easy runs, we have threshold workouts, but there's got to be some programming as we get closer where we treat that like a race day, and we are properly fueling our bodies, and proper supplementation is incorporated. So we're carrying a water bottle, getting used to drinking water while we're running, carrying a gel or gummies, whatever you prefer. We like to use the gels because they just go down quicker. So we are incorporating all of these things so that we are ready on race day. You can't just go into race day completely blindsided and think that you can hit this pace, think that you'll be all right if you take this gel and drinking water, because really our bodies are not designed to run and eat and drink. Like,
you have to practice it.
That's a lot going on. So we have to practice those things and incorporate those things. So just like we talked about, incorporating those paces, we have to incorporate specific nutrition too. So I do think as you get closer to coming up to your race, it's really important to treat some of those days like as if it were to be race day, because if you can figure out the perfect food, the perfect meal that your body needs, then you're set up for a successful run. Like I would play around with that. Like we kind of already know what our body's like before jumping into a run,
because we've practiced it.
Exactly. And same with weight training, but I would really advise you to like play around with that a little bit. Just because so-and-so eats bread and honey and peanut butter doesn't mean that works for you, because it doesn't work for me. My body doesn't seem to like honey. I don't know why, but and that might work for you. So you just kind of have to play around with that and treat some of your days like it's a race day.
Yeah, every long run throughout our half marathon prep or whatever prep we're in, we treat like it's race day. So from the sleep that we get, to the breakfast that morning, to the electrolyte supplementations, to the hydration, to the warm up, to the gel, to the clothes we wear, to the shoes that we run in, everything is really, do we take it seriously like it's race day? Because when you do that, it just provides comfortability, and I really enjoy doing that. And it just helps you kind of refine what it is that you need to do, because like Alyssa mentioned, everybody's so different. If you can find a food that, one, digests really easily for you and is going to be a good source of energy, you're not going to have any stomach cramping, or you're not going to have any sort of bloating or gas associated with that food, that's ideal. Because on race day, if you put all this work into this race and then you eat something that makes you bloat in your stomach and feel like trash, you're really going to be struggling to hit your miles. You may have the fitness to do so, but it's like your GI system is just working against you. So we practice that. For me, every long run day, we do it every Tuesday. It's usually mid-morning. For breakfast that day, I'll always have some toast. I'll always have peanut butter, honey, and then a scoop of our FitGrind whey protein. And then typically about an hour before the workout, I hit about 40 grams worth of liquid carbohydrates, some electrolytes, and like you mentioned, we always have a gel intra-run. If it's hotter, we run with some water and electrolytes, and then depending on the distance, we'll practice the gel strategy. And this is stuff that will all go really in depth as we get closer to the half marathon.
Yeah.
And we're also documenting on our YouTube channels as well. But you have to practice it. You have to practice everything to a T, because it builds comfortability
and confidence.
And confidence, and that is such a big key. If you're like, I don't know if I can do this race, I don't know if I can run this pace, the more you doubt yourself, the less likely you are to do it, versus if you're like, I got this. I've put all this work in. I know exactly when to hit my gel. I know what I should eat before my workout. I know what shoes, socks,
Yep.
shorts, shirt, nipple guards, everything that you need to run that race, because I promise you, if you don't practice it, somewhere something's going to go wrong and you're like, man, I wish I would have practiced this beforehand.
Yeah.
And just set yourself up for success. So
yeah, I grew up as an athlete, obviously, and so something that has always stuck to me is practice like you play.
yes.
And this is totally like bringing back memories of that. It's like, you know, whatever you practiced is how you're going to perform. However you practice is what your performance is going to be resembled by. So I made a post today actually on my Instagram, and it was like, whatever work you're doing on your own and maybe no one's watching you, that's the effort that is going to show. So, you know, just because not everyone is working out with somebody, or you're not doing it on Instagram and showcasing your work, whatever effort that you are putting in, and people may not be seeing that or watching that, is the effort that you are going to show up and put in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it matters more what you're doing when no one's looking versus when someone is looking. I love that.
That's what I was trying to say.
That's so true. It's, yeah, I mean, sports, you grow up, and like my sports were baseball and basketball, primarily baseball as I got older. But it's like you practice the way that you're going to practice on game day. And yeah, you're not throwing, you know, if you're a pitcher, you're not throwing as many pitches as you would. You're not, there's certain conditionings, yes, but you always take it serious, and you always are just trying to refine so that when you get to that clutch moment, you can set yourself up for success. It's not a guarantee of success, but it's you're putting yourself in a position to be successful because of all the preparation that you've done. And races are exactly the same thing. It's just coming up on race day, trying to be the best version of yourself, and finding confidence in the race that you want to run and the training that you've done, because there's going to be people that are going to be running way faster than you. There's going to be people that are running at your pace, slower than you. I mean, everybody's there to run their race, and you have to run your pace, your specific race. Don't get caught up in what everyone else is doing. But if you do your work and you put in your daily efforts and weekly efforts, and you build that over the course of time, and you follow every workout to a T, you show up with your nutrition, and you take care of your rest and recovery, all those things are putting yourself and setting yourselves up for success on race day. So these are some of the workouts that you can do, specifically faster workouts that you can incorporate into your training that shouldn't make up all of your workouts, but they're going to make a huge difference in your ability to run faster as a runner and just improve. And these are things that are not easy. They're not super fun workouts, but they are huge confidence builders going into a race. And like we said, building your confidence is such a big thing in a race. It's
going to test you mentally.
Yes, for
sure.
And
physically.
Yes.
But yeah, I think this kind of wraps up what our 20% of our workouts look like. And as the prep goes on, we'll get a little deeper into how things might change the closer that we get to our half marathon. But this is what we're doing right now. And if you are new to running or have a goal that you are trying to hit, hopefully this information can be used for you and your training program.
Yeah. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys in the next episode.